We have been doing a series of studies on love as pertaining to love and marriage, taking upon yourself a spouse to be with you, to cherish, to be with you in good times and bad times. You know, if you stop and think about it, the services that we're used to, wedding services we're used to hearing, is it's to love, honor, and cherish, to be with you through thick and thin, to let not man put asunder, and to be there for each other throughout the days of your life. And the studies that have been done so far, the love and the dating, and for those of you who planned or contemplate marriage, how to look for a spouse, different things like that. And then, okay, you've done it. You have gotten married. Now you're learning to live with each other. Now, you can, all of you married people in the audience, you can look back, and even though you may have dated your spouse for a year or two, maybe even longer, you don't really know a person until you start to live with them. And then you get an aspect of what it's all about. Then the subject changes to raising children, balancing work, family, and even problems that arise. Now, there is the midlife crisis years. Stop and think about that. Those who have, in their own way, have gone through the midlife crisis. You think about getting older. You're getting overwhelmed. You get complacent. Things happen. You take everything for granted. You have started to have problems with children, with sickness, and the fear of getting old. Now, throughout the love and marriage and the midlife crisis, you deal with these, and you will learn to do it. With God's help, you deal with these one day at a time. Because that's just what you do. And your spouse is there right beside you the whole time. Not in front of you, not in back of you, but right there beside you. That's what it was for. Did you stop and think back in the creation, after God had created all these things, then He created man. And it says that of all the animals that God created, He said He wanted Adam to name them, to name all of the creatures that He had made, that God had made. God wanted to see what Adam would name these creatures. But then God said, He says, it's not good that a man should be alone. So He put Adam into a deep sleep, took a rib from him, and He made Eve Adam's counterpart, to be a helpmate. Helpmate. Not a servant, not a gopher to put you ahead of her. She is your helpmate. She is your side by side. Adam says, "You bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh," is who you are. Our spouses are bone of our bone and flesh of our flesh. We are one. That's what marriage is. That's what love is. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be problems arise in a marriage relationship. I'm sure that all of you that are married have gotten into arguments over a period of time, and you look at each other like, "What? You're crazy." Of course, I wouldn't dare say you're crazy to my wife, but you get that way, and you give them looks, and where did that come from? That doesn't make sense. Did you ever stop to think why men think one way and why women think another? And what are we supposed to do? Now, I'm going to read you something. This is now this is what this is, and I will read this as not 100%, but this is what psychologists think and how women and men differ. Not only on the physical aspect, but the mental aspect. Okay, here we go. It says the male brain is highly specialized, using specific parts of one hemisphere or the other to accomplish specific tasks. The female brain is more diffused and utilizes significant portions of both hemispheres for a variety of tasks. Men are able to focus their brains on specific tasks or activities for long periods of time without tiring. Women are better equipped to divide their attention among multiple activities and tasks. Men are able to separate information, stimulus, emotions, relations, etc. into separate compartments of their brains, while women tend to link everything together. Men see individual issues with parts of their brain, while women look at the holistic or multiple issues with their whole brain, both sides of the brain. Men have as much as 20 times more testosterone in their system than do women. This makes men typically more aggressive, dominant, and more narrowly focused on the physical aspects of sex. In men, the dominant perceptual sense is vision, which is typically not the case with women. All of a woman's senses are, in some respects, more finely tuned than those of a man. So, we kind of read these differences between men and women's thinking, and you can put it together yourself on what it's trying to say. Where it read, it says men can focus their brains on specific tasks and activities for a long period of time, where it says that women can't seem to do that, not for any length of time. it says that men are able to focus on narrow issues and block out unrelated information and distractions. Women naturally see everyday things in a broader, big picture vantage point. Now, you can figure out what that means. You've seen it happen. I can see it myself. You can focus, or myself, focus on things, and I don't like to finish it or without it getting done. I try to get as much done as I can, knowing full well I'm not going to be able to, but I like to get it finished. And the distractions that's put behind me, I'm going to give you an example to you men. How many of you have ever taken an engine out of an old car and overhauled it? Okay. All right, you're putting it back together. You got it back in the car. You're hooking everything up. You're getting down to the nitty-gritty now. There it is. It's right in front of you. But you got some spare parts right down here in this box. Where'd they come from? You look at them. We don't need that. You get rid of it. Now, if I was overhauling a car and my wife was there with me while I was doing that, Jerry, what's these parts doing here? We don't need them. Well, where does it go to? She has that ability to focus to, no, wait now. This goes here, according to this drawing. And, you would tell her, oh, just go ahead, I'll get it. Don't worry about it. But that's just kind of how we think. Now, I could go into other scenarios, but I don't have to, because I'm sure you married men in the audience have already figured that out for yourselves without having to say a word. But going back to husbands and wives and love and taking care of each other, did you stop and read in Proverbs chapter 31, verses 10 through 31. Proverbs 31, verses 10 through 31. It says, Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. She seeketh wool and flax, and worketh willingly with her hands. She is like the merchant ships. She bringeth her food from afar. She riseth also while it is yet night, and giveth meat to her household, and a portion to her maidens. She considereth the field, and buys it. With the fruit of her hands she planted a vineyard. She girded her loins with strength, and strengtheneth her arms. She perceiveth that her merchandise is good. Her candle goeth not out by night. She layeth her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold to the distaff. She stretcheth out her hand to the poor. Yea, she reacheth forth her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow for her household. For all her household are clothed with scarlet. She maketh herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple. Her husband is known in the gates, when he sitteth among the elders of the land. She maketh fine linen and sells it, and delivereth girdles unto the merchant. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. She looketh well into the ways of her household. She eateth not the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praiseth her. Many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excellest them all. Favor is deceitful, and beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gate. What better compliment can a wife get than that? What better? And our wives are the same. Our wives are the same way. They're here with us thick and thin. When we're at our highs, when we're at our lows, we're each other's example. When one of us loses our temper at a matter, it's either the wife who consoles the husband and gets them to calm down, or vice versa. We are an example to each other. Now, we haven't even got to the golden years yet. That's what I was supposed to be talking about. Of course, I don't know why they asked me. But traditionally, the golden years are 50 years of marriage and on. Now, we haven't reached that yet, but we're not too far from it. And it's the golden years not per David Bowie, but it's per the Bible. So you can look at it in this way. With God's grace, you made it. For Donna and I, it's 41 years. For those that are older and have been married for longer, and even 50 years on, we have seen things happen in our lifetime that you would not imagine. We've seen good times, we've seen bad times. Good times in the country when there was everyone or a lot had jobs, unemployment rates were down. We have seen riots in the streets. And I'm not talking about things that are happening today. I'm talking about things that happened long before some of you were even born. Donna and I were, those of you who are our age, Donna and I were around when the riots, especially in the Deep South, were happening because of racial matters. We've seen man on the moon. Things that as you live from day to day, as it happens, all these things come together. You put them in your memory, and you just chalk it onto your book of things that's happened to you. Now the kids are gone. They moved on. You've got grandkids now. Your ailments are starting to get more frequent. But the love of your life is still there. Do you remember years ago, you may not, but there used to be a game show on TV. It was called The Newlywed Game. Do y'all remember that? Yeah. They took newlyweds that had only been married for maybe just a few months, half a year, something like that. And the host would ask, they would dismiss the spouses, and the host would ask the husbands questions on what their wives like and dislike and this type of thing. And vice versa, later, they would do the same with wives. And when they get them all together, well, the host would ask these questions. He asked the question to the husband. What would your wife do in this, and this situation? What's your wife's favorite color? This type of thing. What kind of shoes does she wear? Just all kinds of things. And only being married just a few months, husbands, they wouldn't really know. They're just really taking a guess. And as they would give their answers, there would be a lot of shoulder slapping and name calling and things like that. But I bet you, brothers and sisters, those of you that have been married a few years, you pretty much know what your spouse likes and does not likes. You can pretty much figure out before you make a decision. If you see something at a store and you think, well, we could use that, but I don't know if that's the type that she wants, that type of thing. You can just about figure you'll back off before you buy anything because you don't know if your wife would like that, or vice versa. Now, I still get the occasional tie that I don't like, but that's I'll just put it with the rest of them and go on. But brothers and sisters, even though we've been going through thick and thin with our spouses through all these years, we still care for each other. When hard times hit you, maybe the loss of your parents are getting sick, they're getting old, they can't take care of themselves, and you're just, even after 50 years, you can still get overwhelmed. Your spouse is right there with you to console you, to comfort you. Just like it was from the beginning. Just like Eve was to Adam. They too are one flesh. Your spouse and yourself is one flesh. They're a part of you. And brothers and sisters, that's how God wants it. The Scriptures talks about also in 1 Peter 3, in verses 6 and 7, it calls the woman a weaker vessel. Now, I truly think that when the Scriptures talks about weaker vessel, I believe it is talking about the physical aspect of a woman. Because women are just as savvy as men. And in fact, a lot of times when we know they're right, even though us men won't say it, we know they're right because they are savvy. But brothers and sisters, as you live from day to day, and you wake up in the morning and you get up, you and your spouse are in the bathroom getting dressed, and you look at each other, and you see gray hair, no hair, you see wrinkles in your skin, you see age spots, but you just kind of look at each other and just kind of laugh about it. Because, yeah, you are getting older. But that's how God wants it. That's how it's supposed to be. So you young people that may be in the audience that are contemplating marriage, think about it. She'll be there for you. And if your wife or your husband, and when it really gets down to it, they'll bend over backwards to do for you. If you'll just let them. That's all I have. I want to thank you for your patience and listening to me. I guess I could close with this. We did this study by dividing it up into different segments. But in my opinion, from day one of marriage to the last day you breathe, it's all the same. It's still the same. You watch and care over each other all the days of your life. till you take your last breath. Thank you.